Okay, so hello and welcome back to Strathpeffer Junction. It's been quite an exciting week in the world of modern railways because the new Hornby HST TTS sound pack with the proper Valenta engine sounds, the Valenta Paxman engine sounds has come out. Now, this isn't that because I haven't got one. I've got about 5 different HST sets already and I just cannot, despite the kind of child waiting for Christmas urge to order one, I just can't justify buying one. However, once you're inside these newer style Hornby HSTs, they're all basically the same. I have been asked by quite a lot of my subscribers this week, how do I go about improving the sound in these new Hornby HSTs? Because while the sound project itself, the sounds on the chip are pretty good actually for a cheap sound chip, the speakers are still a bit tinny. They're still the rectangular speakers, which are really not the best. They're not properly sealed into a soundbox or anything. So rather than continually sending messages back to people, I thought what I'll do is I'll have a look at my existing Hornby HSTs, which to all intents and purposes look the same inside, broadly speaking, and I'll show you how to upgrade the TTS speaker to a better quality speaker with better bass range. Okay, so I'm going to pop the box aside and magically here it is removed from the box, or one of the cars anyway. This is the dummy car. The power car I'll look at quickly, but to all intents and purposes, removing the body is exactly the same. There is 4 screws, one there, one there, one there, and one there. I've taken these 3 out, and this one I will just loosen a bit more so we can get it out. It's a flat-bladed screwdriver, so it's dead easy. Most of them will just drop out. This one's been a wee bit sticky, it's not going to, but anyway, it's undone. That's all we need. So the way we now do it is to remove the back first, just very gently. Sometimes it's dead easy, sometimes it's a bit sticky, so do be careful. So we remove the back first like that, to about that kind of depth, and then we just pull towards the back, this direction, and remove this bulbous section from the nose here, like that. Now, it can sometimes be jammed in there quite tight, particularly if you've never removed it before. So do take your time and take care. But anyway, that's it off now. So if this is the new style, then normally these come with a plug, so you can unplug this and take the body away for safekeeping. If it's older style, then normally they're connected directly onto the PCB, either soldered or clips, and it's a wee bit trickier and you're probably best leaving it on. But this plug can only go one way round, so once you take it out, you don't have to worry too much about putting it back in again. But I do always recommend that before you undo anything or you take anything apart, desolder anything, take some photos so you know exactly how it goes back together. Okay, so I've just spun it around just to go over a couple of quick things. Because this is an older style of the newer Hornby HSTs, it wasn't built for sound. If you have got the brand new HST sound version, you'll find that in the non-powered car, the dummy car, the speaker is inserted here. And the weights here will be cut back a little bit, and there won't be this little bit of plastic here, which I've never worked out what that's for, and there won't be the little decoder pouch either there, but you'll just see a speaker on there. I will just bring in quickly the power car. Now, I've done some work to this installing a LokSound, so please forgive me. But if you have bought this as the TTS version, you'll find that the speaker is inserted in here. Again, it'll be that standard rectangular speaker in a little plastic enclosure, and it will be in there. But we'll put this to one side, won't get distracted, come back to this in a bit. Okay, if you've bought this as a TTS one, you will find that there will be a little sort of plastic container, this sort of size, in this space here with a speaker in that. So we want to unscrew that, remove that from the loco, and exactly the same on the power car too. We just want to remove the existing speaker out of it so we can see what space we've got to play with. Okay, so now assuming that you have got your speaker out of the road, what are we going to replace it with? Well, there's quite a few options for TTS speakers. The one thing that you absolutely have to stick to is that TTS speakers need an 8 ohm speaker, or they need a couple of speakers which cumulatively are 8 ohms. So do make sure that that is exactly what you're using, because if you're not, if you use a 4 ohm speaker, while that is okay for a LokSound 4 chip, it's not okay for a TTS chip. But anyway, there are some different options, and we'll have a quick look at 2 options, which are probably the 2 that I would recommend. Here they are. We have a bass reflex speaker, and if you cut the 2 lugs off this, it will fit nicely into this space, and it will also fit into the power car as well. I'll just show you that in there. Or we have this, well, some manufacturers, some retailers call this a mega bass speaker. It's got a variety of different names. It's called a 1-inch speaker on some, but basically it is a speaker which comes in this sort of pre-enclosed enclosure. Now this particular one is absolutely ideal for these TTSs because it fits in absolutely snugly and perfectly into the roof of the body there, and when you put this back onto the chassis, it's not fouled by anything. You might have to cut this down and this down if it's not a TTS body, but if it's a TTS body, once you remove the speaker, it's absolutely fine. So all you need to do with this one is to black tack it into the roof of the body there, and it works exactly the same for the body of the power car as well. So this is a dummy car, but installing it into the roof here with a little bit of black tack works perfectly in both of them. The one thing that I would say is sometimes it's a very, very tight fit, and because of manufacturing tolerances, it can be a bit of a squeeze. So what I normally do is just lightly file a bevel on this side of the speaker and on this side of the speaker. Not too much, otherwise you'll go all the way in, but you've got maybe about a millimetre max. Just careful as you go. File that bevel in, and that will allow the speaker just to sit a little bit more into the roof, just to give you as much space as possible. But anyway, once you've filed it, if you need to, and you can do a dry fit first to see whether it works or not, put a little bit of black tack on the back. I like to sometimes put a little bit of black tack on the sides and just snug that in. Now, depending who you bought this from, some of these come with little lugs fixed on the side, which you need to cut off and file slightly. Some of them come without the lugs. It depends who you get them from. But anyway, that's it. Dead simple. Black tack, a little bit of filing into the back there on both the dummy and the power car, and that fits absolutely fine. Okay, so we've established that we can fit this this nice beefy speaker into here, that it's not going to foul on anything so long as we've taken care and the steps described. So I'm just going to take this out for a second, and we're going to move the power car, the dummy power car, just aside just for a moment. So what do we need to do to prepare it? Well, I'm going to bring in a TTS speaker, or sorry, TTS chip with a speaker attached. This is not the one from the from a Valenta power car, because I don't have one. But it pretty much looks identical. The only difference is this is a round speaker instead of a square speaker, but forget that. This is the chip anyway, and it has its 8-pin plug on the side here. So all we need to do anyway is to detach the wires from the back of this speaker, and then solder them onto these wires here. Now, I'm not going to do it with this particular one because this is for class 37, which I'm going to feature in another video, but it's really easy to do. Just a wee dab with a soldering iron, remove those wires, and then solder them back together onto the wires here. Now, if you want, you can cut these down to length slightly. I tend to suggest that you don't cut these ones down because it can be a bit fiddly trying to solder fresh wires onto a decoder if you've messed something up or if they're too short. But if you want to cut these down to size, you can do that. The other thing to mention is with any of these type of joints, I really do recommend that you put a little bit of heat shrink on, run it down the wire, solder everything together, run it back over the solder joint and heat it up. Do that just to prevent shorting. These particular decoders, the TTS ones, are not the best when it comes to overload protection and shorting. They can get fried quite easily, so do look after them. Some people do use insulation tape. The thing that I don't like about that, other than the fact it gets sticky residue over things in time, it also tends to unwrap itself, and before you know it, you can have a short. So I do suggest that you use heat shrink. So anyway, you'll also note that there is a red and a black wire. and a red and a black wire. Now, if you're wiring up a single speaker, it doesn't matter which way around they go. You could have black to red, red to black if you want. But I like to keep things colour coordinated just to avoid any doubt in those situations where it does matter. So I do suggest that you solder the black and the black together and the red together, just to keep on track. Anyway, so we'll assume that you've got that soldered, you've got this heat shrinked, everything's insulated. All you need to do now is to get the decoder and pop it back into the loco, get the speaker installed in the roof, and then pop the body back onto it, and that's you done. Easy. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you have done all of that. You've wired red to red, black to black, you've heat shrunk the heat shrink. Now I have switched out the TTS decoder because, as I say, it's not a Valenta one, and I'm going to do the next part of the video using my LokSound 4, which is what I'll ultimately use in this. But the steps are absolutely identical now. So pretend this is a TTS decoder, or if it's a LokSound 4 that you're installing, then you don't have to pretend anything. But we've got the speaker wired up here on the speaker wires to the 8-pin sound decoder with the 8-pin plug, and we've heat shrunk everything. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that this will fit into the roof like that, and it absolutely does, and that is the best way to do it in the power car. You can do it like that in the dummy power car as well, but actually, having just had a double check at the room available, for the dummy car, we're actually probably better sitting it in the floor here, because that will then mean that you can't see it through the window and you've got a kind of unobstructed view. By installing it in the roof of the car, then you will see a little bit of it through the side windows. It probably isn't going to bother you. You probably won't see it when it's whizzing around the track. But anyway, I'll install it on the base here, but in the power car, in the powered power car, install it on the roof as I showed you before. So if you have the TTS version, then there will be room to do that, and you can just crack on, bit of black tack, stick it into place. If you've got one of the older versions like this one, then you'll probably need to cut out this little peg here, which does, on this one, it does absolutely nothing other than actually be visible through the window for no reason. But I'm also going to just to cut out this decoder holder because that's unnecessary and it's in the way. So I'm just going to do that using a little modelling saw and some snips, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that is this little space all cleared out now. I used the flush cutters to get it flush. If you're lucky enough to have one of the new TTS decoders already installed, you won't need to have done this. But anyway, we have done that. So what we're going to do in this dummy car is to install this speaker just in the back there, just flush on the ground. I'm going to pop a very small amount of black tack on the base of that just to hold it in place. Just a very thin layer, you don't need anything more than that. And what I'm then going to do is, having fully insulated this chip, I'm just going to pop a little bit of black tack on top of that weight there, pop that down there, and then we'll plug in the chip. Now, if you have a TTS decoder, you may well not need to do this. There may well be a little place for the chip to live, but if it's not convenient or you want to relocate it, do make sure that you wrap a little bit of Kapton tape around it to insulate it, or you use something non-conductive like a little sticky foam pad to stick it somewhere where it's not going to move and it's not going to short anything out. Okay, so that's the speaker in place. I've used a little bit of black tack just to hold down the wires, just to stop them flopping about or being too visible through the grills inside the body. I have fixed in the decoder with a little bit of black tape, properly insulated as well, electrically insulated with a little bit of Kapton tape. And all that remains to be done now is to take the 8-pin plug, and again this is the same whether it's a LokSound 4, whether it's a TTS chip, whatever, and insert it into the 8-pin socket. If yours had a blanking plug in it because it didn't come with a DCC chip, then you'll need to very carefully lever that out with a flat screwdriver, otherwise we'll pop it back in. And as ever, it is the orange wire to the orange pin, which is number 1, so just make sure that it's that way around, and we'll slide it in there. Excellent, so that's it all the way home. And what I normally like to do as well is just with this little loom of wires, just to tuck these in down here like that, and then pop a little bit of Kapton tape just wrapped around there just to hold them in the way, hold them out of the way so you can't see them through the grills at the side. But anyway, that's that bit done. Okay, and that's the Kapton tape wrapped around there. Everything's neatly out the way, nothing shorting. That's everything complete. So we can pop the lid back on this one and test it on the test track. But before we do that, I'm going to bring in the power car and have a look at speaker options for that one. Okay, so that's us done the dummy power car. It's a really quick, straightforward upgrade, certainly in comparison to a lot of speaker upgrades that you can do, and anyone with a soldering iron can do it. Turning our attention now to the powered power car, it's still a very straightforward installation, but it's a little bit trickier in that there's more chassis to worry about. Now, if you have got the TTS sound installed one, what you will find is that the speaker is located here in a little plastic housing, and that normally the decoder is taped over the top here. What you then need to do is to remove the speaker, desolder the wires from it, and then solder them into the new speaker. If you don't have the TTS one, like this one here, when you open it up, you'll find that there's probably a blanking plug in here, no decoder, there'll be no cradle in here, nothing much. Okay, so the TTS install, it's really simple. If I can ask you to ignore what's on the end of this here, I have installed this speaker for my LokSound 4, but ignore that. You'll have a space here with nothing in it. You will also have a chip which is fixed over here, normally taped down in a little sort of plastic insulating sleeve, and you'll have a speaker in this place here. So what I normally do is I just unscrew the speaker holding screws, take it out, desolder it, and then you're left with the two wires just like we had with the decoder for the unpowered car. What you then want to do is, from stage left or right, depending on which way you're looking at it, is bring in your new 8 ohm mega bass speaker, or whatever the supplier has called it that you got. You need to trim off these two wings totally flush, cut off the plug, and then cut the wires back to whatever length you need for them to meet up with the wires that you've just desoldered from the stock speaker. And then, just like we did before, you want to match the red to the red and the black with the black. It doesn't matter if you get it the wrong way around, but we'll just stick with black to black and red to red. Bit of heat shrink over the top, and that is the new speaker connected to your TTS chip. And then what you want to do is to get the body into place, and you want to install this speaker right into the top in that area there with a bit of black tack or sticky foam pads, something like that, right into the top of the roof there. Again, as I've mentioned, sometimes depending on the manufacturing tolerances, there can be a little bit less clearance between the top of the motor bogie and where the speaker would come down to. If that's the case with you, just file off a little bit from either side of there, and that'll give you an extra millimetre, and it will sit in snugly in the roof. But anyway, cut off these wings and install it right in the back. And just to say as well, just like with the non-powered or dummy car, it's just the 4 screws back in like that, and a wee flathead screwdriver just to nip them up home. With all these things, you don't need to do it super tight, just enough to hold everything in place. So I'll just finish this, and then we'll hear what it sounds like. Okay, so I've got my little test board in, and for those of you who haven't seen how I made this, I'll pop a wee link up to the video just from a few weeks ago now. By the way, we've got the dummy car and we've got the power car on the rolling road. Just to mention, this is a LokSound 4 with Olivia's HST Class 43 Valenta Paxman sound project. So the actual sound project is not the TTS project, but it's a LokSound one. There's a variety out there that you can get. There's Lego Man Biffo and others as well. But the type of sound that you get out of it with those bass speakers is going to be similar across different projects to get that whistle and that growl and all the rest. Anyway, I'll shut up and let's hand over to the decoders. So that's the decoder in the power car starting up now. So I'm going to shut up now anyway. I'm going to pop these both on so you've got both working at once. We'll have a wee listen to that and then I'll fade it out and we'll end the video there. So anyway, for this one, thank you very much for watching and cheerio for now, and I'll leave it to the Valenta Paxmans. Cheerio for now, bye bye.